Welcome to Justice in Two Languages.
Hey everyone, welcome into an all-new episode of Justice in Two Languages with attorney David Idinopulos over at Elias Law in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I am your host, Mike Leon. David is a bilingual Spanish-speaking attorney. He spent years standing with New Mexicans during some of the hardest moments of their lives, helping families rebuild after sudden loss, confusion, and crisis. And obviously, like I mentioned, he's the founder of Elias Law out in Albuquerque. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about why David chose this work, why he chose this path, the path that actually brought him into personal injury law, the experiences that have helped shape the advocate that he is today. David, it's good to see you as always. I love doing these episodes with you. Normally we do talk about the subject itself. Today, the subject is you. So before we talk a little bit about your career and your experiences, share a little bit about where the interest in law began for you. What kind of drew you to wanting to be an attorney?
Thank you very much, Mike. Sometimes I will talk to classes. They will bring me in for career day and things like that. And invariably, some little kid will say, "Why did you want to become a lawyer?" And the truth is, I wanted to become a lawyer because of basketball. I was an absolute gym rat growing up. And if I had free time, if I had a weekend in the summers, I would go to the gym almost every day to play basketball. And so I got used to the idea of competing with people, competing against people, and I liked that sense of competition. But the other thing that basketball sort of gave me was an opportunity to be around people that really weren't like me. Basketball has changed. I graduated from high school in 1985. And back in 1985, the kind of guy that you would find in a gym was a little bit different. There were no such things as personal trainers. You didn't hire somebody to help you with your outside shooting or anything like that. You just went into gyms and competed with guys. And some of them were average guys. Some of them were professionals. Some of them were gritty. Some of them were janitors. Some of them were, had low-paying blue-collar jobs. And so playing basketball as a young person really it showed me the world. And the other thing that it did is it kind of leveled the playing field. Everybody is equal in the gym, right? You can either play or you can't play. And it doesn't matter what background you came from. Can you put the ball through the hoop? Can you play defense? Can you be a good teammate or not? And that's what matters. And then the other thing that sort of led me to the law, and this may sound kind of odd, is that besides playing basketball, I was a terrible student in high school, didn't give a damn about my grades or anything like that. But I got affirmation working in bars and restaurants. And bars and restaurants exposed me to adults and adult problems and the adult world at a very young age. And so I get out of high school, go off to college. How I got into college, I'll never know. It's a miracle. But I got to college, I reinvented myself, and I started thinking about what it was that I wanted to do. And the only thing that I could really, really think of was I want to become a lawyer. I want to represent the kinds of people that I grew up playing basketball with, that I grew up working in bars and restaurants with. I want to see what I can do to sort of solve their problems. My mother was a social worker. My father was a college professor. And so the idea of service as well was always something that was kind of ingrained in me. I'm lucky enough to be here today and to be practicing it. I've only worked for individuals. I've never represented a single corporation in my life. I was a public defender early on in my career, and now I represent individuals in battles with large insurance companies.
David, it's great to hear. I know we have that similarities from the basketball gym rat mentality.
Right.
I wanted to stick on something you just said, though, at the end there about the law. Like, I guess I could be a lawyer, but when you look back, was there a specific moment or an influence that pushed you from being maybe interested in law to actually, okay, I'm going to pursue it as a career?
Yeah, it was always in the back of my mind. I always knew that was a possibility for me. The truth is that I kind of got to my senior year in college and I said to myself, God, I don't see myself selling something. I don't see myself getting a PhD and teaching the way that my father had done. I don't really want to be a social worker. It is a thankless job. They are underfunded. They don't make enough money. And I kind of just sort of said to myself, maybe being a lawyer is the way to go. The other thing is, I had a family member who was a lawyer, and I went to see her when she was in law school, and she was arguing a case. It was what we would call a mock trial. And I was kind of transfixed at what that process looked like. You see it on TV, it's sensationalized. The reality is, there is a lot of grit and there's a lot of hard work. And I saw her doing that in law school, and I said to myself, maybe studying the law for the next 3 years is what I want to do. That's kind of how I got there. But there was no, I wasn't the victim of injustice. Nobody in my family had something awful happen to them. Yeah, the product of divorce, I suppose, is about it. But that's how I got to the law.
Yet another similarity we have there, David. All right, so enough with the similarities with you and I. Let's talk a little bit more about the personal injury side here, because personal injury work, as you know, it's a world of its own. So, what made you go into that area of law? Was there something about helping people after serious accidents that made you feel connected to that type of work?
I was always connected to the idea of representing individuals from the moment that I became a lawyer. I can remember I got hired in a small town in Southwest Michigan to be a public defender. And on day one, the guy that hired me took me to the courthouse and said, here are your files, here are your clients, they're in the jail cell, go meet them. And from the moment I walked into that jail cell and started representing my clients, I was hooked on the idea of representing individuals. I never wanted to do anything else. And as a public defender, you get to try a lot of cases. So I was in the courtroom constantly, either in trials or preliminary examinations or making evidentiary arguments. And eventually somebody took notice of me, and that was a pretty prominent personal injury law firm. And they said, hey, we're looking for a young, aggressive associate. You appear to be that guy. Would you be interested? The reality is, I had never even thought about personal injury when I was in law school. And to be honest, I sort of looked at personal injury lawyers the way that I think the general population often looks at them until they need a personal injury lawyer. I looked at them as ambulance chasers. The reality is, we are going up against some of the wealthiest corporations and insurance companies in America. When we file a lawsuit against one of the big insurance companies or one of the big oil producers, we are suing billion-dollar companies, and we are suing those billion-dollar companies on behalf of a little person, has a job, maybe can't work that job, vehicle is trashed, got a bunch of injuries. They need somebody like me, somebody like us, my profession. But I've always been hooked on the idea of fighting for someone against the powers that be, the man, if you will.
It's a great perspective twist on the ambulance chasers versus what you guys actually do day to day. So let me ask you about when you first started meeting clients who had been hurt or they lost someone, God forbid. What surprised you the most about the emotional side of the work?
There is, I think, nothing that can completely prepare you for meeting in a small living room in somebody's small little house on a gravel road in the middle of nowhere, and going in there and saying, tell me about your father who died. Tell me about your son, your daughter. There's nothing that can adequately prepare you for the flood of emotions. By the same token, because I had, as I said, grown up in gyms, grown up in bars and restaurants, working there, I knew how to talk to adults. I knew how to handle myself at a pretty young age. I wasn't particularly afraid. In fact, the first time I walked into a holding cell and met my clients, I said to myself, I've known these people all my life. I can do this. But there's nothing that quite prepares you for that emotional moment. I remember once I was in court, and a doctor was putting on testimony about a young man who had been really, really grievously harmed as a result of medical malpractice. And the doctor had not bothered telling my client, his mother, that boy was never going to come out of his coma. And he said that in court, and my client broke down and cried. And it is all you can do to hold in your emotions and to guide your client through that moment with dignity and respect. And then the moment you part, the moment she gets into her car and you get into your car, you cry because it's an emotional moment. And there is There is nothing that you can do to actually prepare for that. And it happens over and over and over. 30 years practicing in this business, I am always just sort of, gobsmacked at the end of a meeting like that, or at the end of receiving news like that, because it's a tragedy every time, every time.
David, the other part of it, as you're talking and you hear the emotion, and people being overwhelmed and vulnerable, I wanted to ask you what it feels like to kind of be the person that they also trust in that moment, to stand side by side with them and kind of defend them and their case. What does that feel like?
I have always felt that it is a profound honor to stand beside somebody in those moments. I have gone to funerals. I have made arrangements to have loved ones shipped back across the American-Mexican border into Mexico. I've handed off remains to family members who have lost somebody. And I never forget what what a profound honor it is to be present in those moments. I remember once when my grandfather was dying. This is years ago. I was a young man, and we were all there at the hospital. And I remember the rabbi saying to my mother and to my aunt, what a profound honor it was to see somebody off in that moment. And that, that sense of honor and also that sense of duty has always stayed with me.
David, a lot of attorneys talk about a case or a client. You've mentioned a few different examples, but was there an early experience that helped clarify the kind of lawyer you wanted to be personally?
Yeah, there was. It was very, very early on in my career, and I really didn't know anything about the personal injury business, right? But there was I met a client. This is in the backwoods in southwestern Michigan. In Michigan, I don't think people that live in cities realize how rural a lot of America is. And in Southwest Michigan, once you leave the town, once you leave the city, you are on these backcountry roads, gigantic canopies of trees, lots of water. And I remember going to meet a client on Southwest Michigan, some backcountry road. And this woman had lost two of her children in a very serious car accident. It turned out to be a products liability case. And I didn't know anything about personal injury. So far, up until that point, I had just been meeting with people who had, I got some whiplash. I got a broken arm. It's in a cast. The doctor says I can wear the cast for 6 weeks. I'll be good to go. But it had never occurred to me until I was sent to meet with this client that those are the kinds of people that I would be representing. And it was in that moment, as I'm sitting there in a home with a grieving mother, that I said to myself, this is a profound experience. What I'm doing here today matters. It matters to this person. It matters to this mother. It matters to the clients that I represent. Some of the cases, they're no big deal. Clients want a little bit of money in their pocket. They get a little bit of money in their pocket. They're happy. But for other clients, it's not just their chance at getting compensation. It's their chance at getting justice. It's their chance at holding somebody accountable. And in many cases, it's their only chance. Sometimes there are accidents, right? And those accidents themselves are not criminal acts. So the district attorney is not going to ride in. The police are not going to arrest somebody. So what I do on behalf of those people may often be the only opportunity they have for justice. And it's in those moments when people say it's not about the money that it really isn't just about the money. Sometimes it is. But for people that have suffered a profound tragedy, they want somebody to listen to them. They want somebody to say what happened to you was not right, and we're going to do what we can to make somebody accountable.
David, is that the part of the job that still challenges you on a personal level? Is that what still makes this work meaningful and rewarding for you?
It's all of it. It is all of it. I have done this now for 30 years. And there's not a day that doesn't come with a challenge, that doesn't come with a surprise. I was in depositions yesterday with a grieving mother who cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. And it's probably been the 1,000th time, maybe the 5,000th time that I've represented somebody like that. And every single time it's new. Every single time it reminds you of who you are and why you do what you do for a living. So, the job is always the same and it's always different.
David, as we put a bow on today's episode and we've talked a lot about your experiences, for somebody out there that's listening to this, maybe they're considering a legal career. After hearing you, I could see that. Or maybe they're just simply curious, about what is continuing to drive you in the work you're doing. What do you want them to understand about why this work is so important?
That's a good question. That's a good question. And I guess what I would say is this. I always wanted to do something consequential, right? I don't have to save the world. I'm not going to win the Nobel Peace Prize, but I wanted to do something consequential, something that would matter in someone's life. And being a lawyer is a grind. In 30 years, I have not had a restful night. I wake up in the middle of the night almost every night thinking about, what do I do in this case? What might we have done better on that case, et cetera, et cetera. But what I would tell anybody considering going into the law, it's a grind. It's a grind. You will get out of it what you put into it. If you approach being a lawyer with passion and with a sense of competition and a sense of fairness and a sense of fighting for the right outcome, it's an amazing career. It's not an easy career. And there are going to be good days and bad days in the law. Fortunately, most of my days have been good, but man, oh man, when those days are bad, they are rough. And it's part of what being a lawyer and also being what an adult human being, is like. You got to deal with the good and the bad. But man, oh man, grind it out, do something consequential, give yourself to this profession, and it will be amazing, just amazing.
You got to deal with the good and the bad. We leave it there. David, I can't thank you enough for the time, the insights, and giving us your background, your experiences. I truly appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you, man.
That's it for today's episode of Justice in Two Languages. If you want to learn more, you want to connect with David and his team over at Elias Law, do me a favor right now. Visit abogadoelias.com or call 505-888-8888. You're going to find resources there in English and in Spanish to help you understand your rights. Feel supported as you move forward by David and his team. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Don't forget, like, subscribe, leave a review, and comment. Share the episode with somebody who's maybe thinking about being a lawyer. As always, I'm Mike Leon. See everybody next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.